We all know that practicing slow is one of the best ways to refine technique, and I certainly believe this. However, I have found it is sometimes challenging to bridge the gap between a practice tempo and then a really brisk performance tempo just by using slow practicing to approach that. So chunking is a technique I will sometimes employ that's helpful to either isolate specific figures in a technical passage for more refinement, or as a way to speed up a passage that I've been practicing at a slow tempo already and have some familiarity with. Take this run, for instance, from Holst's first suite. I'll play it as written, and you can then take it and do chunking with it in a variety of ways. So here's as written. And so what I'm going to do with chunking is take that same passage and do different groupings with it, again, in order to refine the specific parts of it. So the first way I'll do it is just by doing a beat of sixteenths at a time. And notice that I'm always going to end on the next note in order to help those eventually be able to be meshed back together. So here's one beat at a time. So once you're comfortable with that, you could elongate the size of the chunks you're doing, and I'll often do 2 beats at a time. This piece happens to be in 3/4, but 2 beats at a time works especially well in 4/4 because you're then splitting the bar in half. Again, always going to the note of the next chunk you're going to do so that you're not building in walls in between them. And finally, you can do whole measure chunks. I think this is really helpful when you're getting close to that performance tempo and you can play the pieces of it, but you can't quite play the whole thing. This is a way to start reaching towards that. Again, very helpful to look at the smaller pieces of it. Also, at this point, you can start to think about kind of checkpoints with your phrasing as you're getting to each measure. Another thing that can be fun is to move through the excerpt all the way through, but do half of it at tempo and the other half under tempo. So in this variation, you're not stopping, but you're giving yourself time with the half tempo pieces to not feel so rushed as you're moving through the excerpt. And then you would, of course, invert that, and whichever pieces you played of it, or sorry, chunks you played of it, half tempo, you would then go back and switch that so that those chunks are performed at tempo. That's another good way to start getting through the excerpt, but again, you don't have to get all the way through it at tempo yet. So all of these options, in addition to slow practicing, give you just ways to familiarize yourself with technical material without having to perform it at tempo or playing it too quickly, possibly learning mistakes, but while still playing parts of it at performance tempo. I also find this approach helps you develop more of an awareness of the specific building blocks of a passage. This can help with phrasing, memorization, You'll really hear kind of the way the melody moves through the phrase and can kind of explore some resolution ideas. It's also a fun way to break the monotony that can sometimes be slow practicing. Even though we all believe in it, it can also help require an increased awareness from you, because you're having to start and stop at different spots, and with the half time, regular time one I did at the end there, you're having to control different levels of subdivision. I find that sometimes when doing slow practicing, it will just become students going through the motion and they're not really paying attention, they're just running through things slowly. So chunking can be a way to kind of change this, and we know that practicing without paying attention or without awareness can sometimes be just as bad as playing too quickly. So I hope that's helpful to you, and just one piece of many that can help you work on technique.